We should be live, but we'll check all of the things as per usual as we wait for people
What
to
we
trickle in.
always do. Okay, there we go.
And of course, as you trickle in, say hi. We want to say hi back.
Yes, say hi when you get here. It's what we always do. Sorry, my throat is weird today. It's allergy season.
It's that time of year.
Yes.
Okay,
All right,
looks
got
like
it
we are
all
good to
shared out on
go.
my end.
Okay. It has been a while, but I am ready.
Me too.
So, hi everyone. I am April. This is Shae. She is going to sit here and talk to me about this book right here. When did I first throw this one at you? It had to have been at the end of last year.
Yeah, well, it came out like summer last year, I want to say. And we started like roughly considering it then. But then we kind of got distracted with other shiny things because we had like the Requiem of the Rose King project we were doing last year and some things that kind of got pushed to the back. And then you threw it at me again in the beginning of this year, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I want to do. So
Yeah, because I think I just went on a kick of getting a whole bunch of Asian
retellings.
fairy tale retellings, and so I've got like a
Because we've
stack of
gotten a
them that I want
lot
to get
lately.
through.
I mean, there's
Right.
so much Asian folklore we could dive into. It's really fun.
Yes. So, Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. This is a Six Swan retelling, and that, of course, speaks to my soul. And we've read Elizabeth Lim before with Spin the Dawn and that whole series. So, we wanted to give
Which
this
was
one a
fun
try.
and unique in its own way.
Right. So, we have the story. I'm going to butcher all of these names, and for that, I apologize. But essentially, we've got, I think it's Shiori. That's how I said it in my
I read it,
head.
Shiori.
Yeah. Shiori is a princess in the kingdom of Kyoto. I'm just going with it. She
Yep.
is the youngest of seven children. She is the only girl. She is set to marry a prince from another kingdom, but she's not that excited about it. But of course, following the Six Swans retelling, we have a stepmother, we have a curse, we have weaving with thistles of various kinds, and then we have the inclusion of some Asian folklore in this as well, which I liked because we have dragons and a few twists on things with magic that I think was super exciting. And as
Yeah.
always, there will be spoilers in this discussion because we like to talk about
It's hard to talk
anything,
about this one, especially without spoilers.
anything and everything. So I'm going to throw it at you, Shae, for what your first thoughts and ideas about this book. This is a first in a duology that we are talking about picking up the second one later this year, which is I'm kind of excited about. But Shae, over to you.
So I think overall I liked the Asian take on the six swans, having it be the six cranes. Naturally, that's an easy bird to transfer that over to because cranes have their own symbolism within Asian cultures. And so I really felt like that was the right choice if they were going to do that. And also just because there are distinct things within the look of a crane that had significance and symbolism within this particular one. It's definitely feeling like a love triangle at the moment, which
Mm-hmm.
falls into a YA trope that I don't always love. Because if I remember right, in the Six Swans, there isn't really a triangle by any
No.
means. But this is a way for Elizabeth Lim to weave kind of two different corners of folklore together. So for me, it's working. One thing that worked really well for me was the yokai nature of the stepmother. She definitely is a, I would say she's a yokai just because she is very much like a snake demoness kind of a thing. And it's really the way that they introduced that element was really well done to me because, you know, Shiori always felt like something was off about her stepmother. She couldn't place it. She couldn't figure out what. No one trusted her, and she treated Shiori differently. And I think because the stepmother knew that there's a chance Shiori would figure it out, and so she always held her at arm's length. And then, Shiori is naturally very curious, and so she went exploring and discovered the demon slash yokai nature of this stepmother. And I thought that was so unique and so well done. And I also really like that the way the prince from the other kingdom was presented, that worked really well for me. And I did not expect it. I just kind of went in and enjoyed this one. I didn't go in with expectations because I knew no matter what, I would end up comparing it to Daughter of the Forest. Because Daughter of the Forest is one of the best, if not the best, 6-1 retelling I've ever read. And so I knew by nature I would compare it. But I actually really liked the way the prince from the neighboring kingdom was introduced. And he wasn't a bad guy. He's the perceived bad guy from Shiori's perspective because in Asian culture, when a woman's married, like naturally the husband takes over everything, kind of like how it was in the 1800s anywhere else in the world. And
Right.
so she's afraid of giving up her freedom. And that's why she doesn't want to get married. It's not that it's necessarily him or anything wrong with him. It's just the whole idea of marriage. And so when she actually gets to know him, he starts to seem more appealing to her. And that worked, again, really well for me. There's a lot about this that worked really well for me. But then there were other parts that it's like, oh, I want a little more. I want a little more. One thing that I did enjoy is that there's a particularly traumatizing moment within Daughter of the Forest that was not depicted in this one that I was okay with. Just because that moment was so raw and so gritty that I think if another retelling tried to do it, I would always think they did it wrong.
Well,
there's something about Julia Verlier's writing. I naturally just compared them, and I didn't mean to. It just happened.
yeah, it's hard. It's hard not to because there's so much depth in Merlier's storytelling, especially the whole Seven Waters series in and of itself. But I had to bring myself back because you're right. This is YA, and so it follows a lot of those YA storylines, a lot of those arcs, a lot of those tropes and stereotypes. But I think I was at a point of reading this story where I needed that. I needed that familiarity. I needed that softness and that knowledge that things were going to work out the way I expected them because I have read this story so many times and this level of story so many times. So I was probably a little softer on this than I could have been because of life and everything going on. But you're right, it does do a lot of nice things with weaving those Asian elements into this story because we have not only the symbology of the real life cranes, but we also have those paper cranes thrown into this, and they have a significant part to play as well, along with that dragon folklore and what dragons symbolize in that culture. I mean, they're not necessarily something to be trusted, but they are an element of nature that has an element of control over what is going on, which is why this book is set up in two parts like it is, and that kind of love triangle starts to happen. That while, yes, another love triangle, but it's going to open up this element to the story where we get to start to dive into this whole culture around dragons that I'm really super excited about seeing. You did mention the stepmother, because traditionally in this story, the stepmother is the whole reason all of this is happening. She's trying to gain power for whatever reason. She's got an ultimate end goal of controlling something. But here we have a stepmother who puts this curse on these kids, trying to protect them because there's another element coming in, and she knows that if she doesn't do it the right way, the other side's going to win. And she's had so much go on in her past that the only way she knows how to do that is to set it up so that she's also a villain.
Right.
And there's
And
this
that's
like,
one thing that Elizabeth Lim, I think, does really well is those morally gray characters where they're not necessarily bad guys because their motivations are pure, but the way they go about it makes them look villainous. It's a very
right.
Ghibli Asian storytelling kind of way to do it, and it worked really well for me in this one.
Yeah, because she's not a good woman by any means. She did a
Oh
lot of
no,
things
I
wrong
mean
in her
she's
past.
horrible. She put this bowl on top of Shiori's head and cursed
Right.
it there,
Yeah, and
like
there's
so no
something,
one would recognize her, and that's the only reason why.
yeah, there's something about them still finding this bond together as mother and daughter, even though she erased that element of her memory at some point and twisted it. There's the fact that there is that bond that can happen, that even though you've got someone who probably doesn't ever deserve that, but they recognize how precious that is. And that whole moment near the end of the book where you start to realize all of those things is, I found that the most enticing part of the story.
Right, and that's I think what sealed it together for me and made me continue to enjoy it and want to pick up the next book.
Mm-hmm. I would have to agree because, I mean, without her,
Up to that point, it was like I would be okay to end with this book and not go on to the
right?
next one.
Yeah.
But with the way Lim introduced basically this whole other subplot, it just makes me want more. It makes
Mm-hmm.
me want the more. And I think that's ultimately why this one is like a 4 star instead of a 5 star for me. When it comes to it, is just that overall throughout the course of my reading experience with the book, is I just wanted a little bit more. It's like either give me a little more Asian influence or give me a little more depth to my characters, just a little something more.
Right. Yeah.
And and like I say, it's not bad. I enjoyed myself. I want to pick up the next book, but it's not that 5 star blow me out of the water YA that I was hoping it would be. It's close, but not quite there.
Say hi. Thank you for stopping in. But yeah, no, I would definitely agree with you. Once again, I feel like it comes back to the YA nature of what the story was trying to do.
I would
It's
agree.
hard for me at this stage in my life with all the reading that I've done not to want more.
Same.
But
Like, and I hate to do this too because also this year I read Daughter of the Moon Goddess,
mm,
um, which is Asian. It's a Chinese um, about the Chinese moon goddess. It's all centered around the mythology there, and it's so good. Have you read it yet?
no, it was on my pile over here of
In
suggestions
my
to
head.
make
Like
if we
it's
didn't have
so good.
anything.
And that gave me what I needed. It was a nearly perfect book
It's a
for me.
thick book.
Uh-huh.
So,
It's good. It's worth your time, worth your investment. And so I think by nature, because I've read that so recently, I need and that one's technically an adult book.
hmm,
And so as I was reading Six Crimson Cranes, I wanted a little more of that. And
yeah.
so I think just because again, I'm nearing my upper 30s here. So I'm getting to that point where I just need a little bit more from my stories. And I
Right.
do primarily read adult fiction, YA fantasy, not YA fantasy, sci-fi fantasy is what I meant to say. The only exception to that is a lot of the quote unquote teen reading that I do is still in manga just because I haven't explored a lot of it yet.
Well, yeah, and that's something, I mean, this is a little outside of actually talking about the story, but it's interesting to see how your life experience affects your reading and how your past reading affects your current reading. I mean,
Oh, agreed.
there's something to be said about book reviews and the age of the book reviewer,
Right.
because you're
Which
all
is
going to notice different
if
things.
I can go into this and say like 16-year-old me would have given this 5 stars. Absolutely loved and adored it.
Right.
But adult me wanted a tiny bit more, so it's a 4. And not saying it's bad. It was still enjoyable to read as an adult, but I am also not the target audience. And that's why usually when I'm reviewing a YA title, I say, as an adult, this is my rating. Teenage me would have rated it this.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can differentiate myself enough from it to understand like where I was at as a teenager and be like, okay, teenage me would have eaten this up like candy. But adult me is like, I've read so much now that this needed a little more for me to give it that same love.
And see, and I think we've got similarities here. It's like, if it was a really good, decent read, was it my favorite retelling of this story? Not necessarily, because I've read so many.
Mm-hmm.
But if I wanted to introduce someone to this retelling, to Asian culture, to this kind of storytelling, I would definitely recommend this book.
Oh yeah, it's a great intro book, especially for somebody who's younger. Because like when you and I were teenagers, YA was not what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It was Sweet Valley High and like Fear Street. Like those were our options. We did not have this level of teen reading that there is now.
Right.
So that's why I'm like, teenage me would have been all about this. Would have been like choosing who to ship her with, which all those kinds of things. I have my own thoughts as an adult on that.
Yeah, because I mean, stuff in this genre. I mean, if you looked really hard, you could find it, but they were like 90 pages long. Yeah. They gave you no depth. They gave you the standard story. You did get a feel for the characters.
As teenagers, were reading adult novels.
Mm-hmm.
Things like Lord of the Rings, Daughter of the Forest, things like that. We were reading as teenagers rather than as adults. So our naturally our reading experience and our expectations of a young adult genre are going to be different than teenagers reading now.
Exactly.
So I think that's the other part of it, is just that the options are so much greater.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Nope. That's. I mean, like it sounds like we're getting a lot of those same kind of comments in
right.
In
we
the
all
chat,
kind of the same. It's adult us. We're like, we wanted a little more, but teenage us, we would have been like, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah. But with that being said, I mean, I want to read the next one because I need to know what happens in the Dragon Kingdom.
As long as it actually comes out on August 30th, there's a good chance that will be our September choice for Tell It Again, and we would revisit that.
Right. So stick around, and that'll probably happen.
Continue to read with us. Do we have anything else that we really want to say about this particular one? I love your handle, because Lady Hawk was one of my favorite movies growing up. I was known as the mouse of my house.
Yeah, we got a lot more people showing up, and that makes me excited.
Makes me happy too.
I think we covered a lot. There was a brief.
We didn't talk much about the dragon side of this story.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit because it doesn't play a huge element yet, even though the dragon.
The title of book 2, it's going to play a much bigger part.
Yeah, even though the dragon pearl is the whole reason all of this is going down in the first place, and we have the tie-in of the what is the star stroke.
Yeah.
Which is the thistle of this retelling that she has to weave with and make a net instead of shirts with it, which I thought was a nice little twist on the story.
Agreed.
But I feel like she kept the dragon side of this a little bit quieter because she wanted the cranes to be carrying the story. And I think that...
Which I think is good. And that lets it almost be 2 separate stories that are just tied together with the same characters, which I think was smart.
Yeah, and she did that with Spin the Dawn, too.
Yeah.
The retelling was the first story, and then she carried on the story and made it something a little bit new in the second book.
Mm-hmm. Which I think works well for the way she likes to write.
Right. Okay.
So yes, I like the direction that we're going, and I really am excited for book 2. So if we don't get to it in 2022, it will be very early in 2023 that we read it, because we are both excited enough that this will happen for the book club.
Yes, for sure. Plus, you know, the covers.
Yes.
The covers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, shall we reveal our April pick? Because
Yes.
since we're kind of in the middle of March now, we've decided to just extend it through the end of April. Life happened for both of us. Things have been crazy lately, so we're sorry that things have been a little more spaced out than normal, but it's what we both needed. So, all right. So the next pick is actually going to be a short one, which we've not done a novella like that all yet for the book club. So I'm actually excited. The closest thing would be manga, but we were doing 3 of those at a time.
Right.
So, we are going to read A Spindle Splintered by Alex E. Harrow. This has been out at least a year, if not 2. I don't remember. It's been out a little while. At least
I think about a year.
Yeah. And this is Alex E. Harrow's take on a Sleeping Beauty retelling. And all I'm going to say right now is the last line of like the main blurb at the top, not the actual blurb. And it says, "Only the dying girls like Sleeping Beauty." So I think it's going to be fun. I think it might have some like spooky or slightly maybe even like horrific elements to it. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming we're going to be dealing with lots of blood and things. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see. And it's got beautiful like illustrations like throughout it. So
yeah, just by the design, it looks very gothic.
Oh, very gothic.
I'm here for
it. And April and I both, we love a good gothic story.
It's
so
true.
Very excited about that. And we'll be doing that in the end of April. The live show will be on my channel.
So go subscribe to her if you're not subscribed.
If you're not already. We've been doing this long enough. We hope you're subscribed to both of us.
Oh, yeah. The next read is an adult read.
Yeah.
We will preface it with that. So there might be some adult related themes in the story.
Neither of us have read this yet. But even most of the ones we've gone into blind, we've done okay. So
okay, I think that is it for today. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming and hanging out and chatting with us and talking about this beautiful book. Like Shae said, at the end of April, we will be back on her channel, Shae Geeks Out. Information is down in the description if you want to save all of that. And of course, if you want to see more content like this on my channel and you're not subscribed, I recommend that you subscribe because I want to see your faces again. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the weekend.
We haven't talked about this much on our Tell It Again streams, but we're also part of a collaborative channel talking about comics and manga. It's called That's Comical. If you want to check out content from us over there, feel free to check that out. The whole entire team, it's a team of 5 people that we all contribute to the channel. So it's a really fun collaborative project. So feel free to come check us out over there and check out the content that we're putting out there. We'd also love to hear suggestions of what you'd love to see over there.
Yeah, because Shae and I do a series on Girl from the Other Side over on that channel, which is fairly interesting. So I recommend you go check that out too. But otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I heart all of your beautiful faces. Bye.
Bye.